Hi, everyone. This is Steve Head with the Post Movie Podcast. This special episode is part 2 of my conversation with MovieBob, a.k.a. Bob Chipman, about our top 10 favorite films of 2011. This second part was originally about 2 hours in length, so I tried to cut out as much of the extraneous conversation as I could. So now the running time is about an hour and a half or so. It's not short, not super long. Maybe it's super long. I guess it's super long. Anyway. Some of you like that. So that's a good thing, right? If you're listening to the podcast for the first time, the Post Movie Podcast is a bi-weekly show in which my co-host and fellow film critic John Black and I discuss new theatrical and home video releases. All of our episodes are online at post-movie.net, and you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And if you like the show and if you can leave a review, that would be super awesome, fantastic, and similar exclamatory words. So let's pick up the conversation where we left off. Here's part 2 of our favorite films of 2011 with MovieBob. I'm not good with transitions. I think, so it's, in between moving from Sucker Punch to Midnight in Paris.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, how do I transition to number 6? Because my number 6 is Win-Win.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Oh, God, what's his name?
Paul Giamatti?
Well, Paul Giamatti. I was trying to think of the director, McCarthy. Tom McCarthy, if I recall correctly.
I didn't see it. I couldn't.
Yeah, I think so. And this, me being slightly embarrassed to admit, we interviewed him.
Really?
Yeah. Tom McCarthy. Actually, who's from my hometown of Short Hills, New Jersey.
Oh, cool.
I almost said Short Hills. Short Hills, yep. New Jersey. He directed The Station Agent.
Yep. And
I want to say that at the time this film came out, Fox Searchlight could have held this until December and it would have been an Oscar contender. Mm. But they decided to go with the buzz they got from Sundance,
right. Yep.
And the positive, reviews that were out there and put it out in, I guess it was April. Right. But to their credit, this really ought to happen more often with movies as opposed to the piling up of good films at the end of the year, which is just fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
We deserve good movies all the time. Yeah. Not just in December.
Well, didn't Little Miss Sunshine come out in the summer? And was a huge, remember that was like, it did good at Sundance, then it came out over the summer and was a huge hit.
I think it says this works against the grain and Midnight in Paris comes out over the summer and it still stays. It says something about like either the studios are cheap and they don't want to spend more on advertising, which is expensive anyway. So maybe I shouldn't say that it's cheap, but they're trying to get the most bang for their buck by putting it into the swill of stuff at the end of the year. Maybe it's not swill. What they would consider the potpourri of goodness.
Yeah, well, they're doing what they know, and also it's not in the movie business now because it's so people change jobs so often. It's like, well, I was the head producer here, and now I'm something else over here. Everybody wants to have something immediately successful to their credit, and
a good movie's going to stick.
Well, that's the thing.
It's going to stay with you.
You don't get, because of the way entertainment is reported now and like box office grosses it's always, the number one thing this weekend is, what these things, if your movie doesn't open in first place, like it's better on a resume, it seems like.
Win-Win could never have been that film.
No, exactly.
It's just a small, great film.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think for a lot of the producers who are making these decisions, it is better to have made a movie that opens at number 1 and then nosedives in the second week because at least I had the number 1 movie in America than it is to make a movie that opens in like 4th place but then stays there forever and makes back its budget. And it's unfortunate because this will make them more money and get us better movies, and they're not doing it because they don't get to put a thing on their door that says, I have the number 1 movie this week. Hooray for me. Yeah. And it's unfortunate because, a lot of smaller, more interesting stuff is just going to get ignored because, it's people aren't going to pay attention.
Has Paul Giamatti ever been nominated for an Academy Award? Did he ever get anything?
I want to say that he was nominated. Did he win? He was nominated for Sideways. He had to have been nominated for Sideways.
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't nominated for
No,
Sideways?
I think that was the glaring omission at the Oscars that year.
And this is my job to know, too. But he must have been nominated, but I don't believe he's won yet, because I think I would remember that speech.
Right.
But
I don't think I'm leaning towards not having ever been nominated for an Academy Award and having really just deserved it.
Yeah.
You know, here's another circumstance where it's a terrific performance, but nobody's going to do anything with it.
Well, it might make its way to TV. It's, a family movie. If it has an audience, it'll find an audience. I have to imagine.
Here he plays a high school gym coach who also is a lawyer, or is it the other way around? He's a lawyer and he also moonlights as a high school teacher, gym coach.
It'll probably be the
gym coach. Wrestling coach.
Wrestling coach, yeah.
And this wayward kid from Ohio is taken under their wing. He in sort of a strange set of circumstances where because Paul Giamatti needs to make some more money to make ends meet,
right.
He ends up taking on the responsibility of an elderly fellow played by Burt Young.
Yep.
Not so much caring for him, but getting the money from the state, It turns out that this older fella has a daughter who has a wayward son who ends up staying with Giamatti and his family.
Okay.
Kind of people would look at this kid and say bad influence, but the thing is he's a kick-ass wrestler.
Right.
Which just changes the whole paradigm. There I go with my fuck. I got to get rid of that. I got to get rid of that expression, which changes everybody's opinion of the team's ability because he's so good at wrestling. One of the real kickers in this film is Bobby Cannavale as Paul Giamatti's neighbor.
Oh, nice.
Who recently divorced. Hysterical performance as just a real excitable, uppity guy who, his emotions are pretty much basically out there on his sleeves. So when he sees a good wrestler, it's just he's not afraid to tell the other kids that they suck. It's just a good film.
Excellent.
And I think it should be nominated. As much as I hate to say what's going to get, to do that kind of prognosticating.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to see it get a screenplay award or something like that. And, it was released at a time when, they should be putting more stuff out that, great films earlier in the year.
Yeah.
Just fucking do it, people.
Yeah. It's the way their business model goes, though.
Yes.
All right. So I can't add much because I didn't see it, but I'll certainly take the recommendation. So those are your number 6.
That was my number 6.
There's your number 6, Win-Win. Everybody check that out. Then I move into my number 6, which was The Muppets.
Nice.
I'm a big, this is so much of what is sort of clogging up movie theaters now is my generation cementing the fact that we will not grow up. That, my generation has pretty much decided that our lives pop culturally peaked when we were about 13. And while we will grow old, we're going to stay right the hell there. And Hollywood is going to help us because there's, movies about the Transformers and about, I'm sure there'll be a He-Man movie and all of these things that we loved growing up in the late 70s, early 80s to early 90s of, the encompassment of my useless Generation X tail end thing. But a lot of them coming out are crap. Of these movies where they take a brand that's been done for a while and they shit it out into a movie, and you wind up with the Smurfs, which were not terribly.
That's the first thing that came to mind when you were talking about stuff from one's childhood.
Yeah, I mean, the Smurfs, which were not terribly good. To begin with, I can go back and watch Transformers or G.I. Joe and say, yeah, this is pretty cool. The Smurfs pretty much always sucked. Yeah. Alvin and the Chipmunks, which is even older, but had an 80s revival. They brought that back in the movies. The movies are really bad.
But what's great about this situation here is the Muppets are an analog entertainment.
Yes.
That was done away with effectively in the digital age, and they've been brought back.
Yeah. Of all these revivals of these things, which there's a subgenre of them where you have the Transformers movies where it's here's the new kick-ass movie version of this thing, and then you have the Smurfs, which are about yanking something and admitting that it was an anachronism and making fun of it in the real world. The Muppets is pretty much
it's Muppets. It's puppets without legs.
Yeah,
and we're not digitizing them.
Yeah, it's working that of this story of Jason Segel, who's a huge, blew up with Forgetting Sarah Marshall, has a popular TV show called, How I Met Your Mother, which is largely responsible for helping the Neil Patrick Harris rules the world thing happen because he's on that show.
Yeah.
He, big Muppet fan, Disney gave him carte blanche because they really wanted to be in business with him to do whatever the hell he wanted. And he said he wanted to revive the Muppets. And the movie is, much like the original Muppet movie was making fun of the, how an acting troupe comes together movie genre. The Muppets is making fun of comeback stories. So the Muppets are coming out of retirement. And
it's always entertaining when you've got 20 seconds to showtime and nothing's coming together.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
I'm glad that people have kind of warmed to the new movie, but it's a nostalgia trip. It's, hey, remember the Muppets? Here they are again. We won't talk about Muppets from space. That didn't happen. It's
all in good fun and entirely entertaining.
Yeah.
And the musical sequences are the best.
Yeah, they're
the few that there are.
Yeah, there's some
wonderful.
Great music bits in there. Man or Muppet is one of the best movie moments of the year.
What was the one that Amy Adams sung?
Oh, Me Party.
Me Party.
She
awesome.
She's Jason Segel is pretty well suited to this. Amy Adams belongs in movies where she's talking to puppets and being in this sort of heightened Walt Disney world because she's one of those people.
She has a Cinderella quality.
Yeah, she she's been Amy Adams. Amy Adams has been perfectly cast in 3 movies, and it was this, Enchanted, and Junebug.
You look at her and you think that there are bluebirds on her shoulders.
Yeah, she's something else. I mean, actually, I'll say she was perfectly cast in one other thing because she was that was her in Night at the Museum too, right? As Amelia Earhart.
Yes.
Not a great performance, not a great movie, but you can't take your eyes off her.
She is wonderful. I did one of her first interviews. It was the first press thing she'd done when Spielberg put her in Catch Me If You Can.
Really?
And she couldn't afford to come to the junket. At the time,
wow.
I mean, studios don't always pay for actors to go to junkets. Sometimes they, for the key actors, I guess they do, but for the supporting actors, they, unless if the junket's not in L.A., if it's not convenient to them, I think they work out sometimes an agreement where they pay half or something like that.
Geez.
But Spielberg brought her to New York to do the interviews. She had a small part in the movie where she played, I think the nurse who mended and had a makeout scene with DiCaprio.
Yeah.
But it was her first big thing, and she was just adorable through the whole thing, and talked about how much she'd had to go through all the whole waitress thing, and I think she even worked at Hooters.
Oh yeah.
And even much to her dad's displeasure, and all these stories about what you got to do to make it as an actress. She's just her talent, man. She's made it.
Yeah, she's something else.
She really is.
Yeah. I remember seeing she's in. She actually they gave
I like her reality. She seems to me from a journalist point of view, we do get to meet some of the talent. Some people you could never imagine yourself in the same room with because they're just otherworldly and weird or something like that. But her. Amy Adams is somebody you can have a beer with at a bar and sit down and feel comfortable, and she'll make you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So that's really, the best you can say about certain talent is that they haven't lost their grip. Yeah. Maybe she has. I don't know. So
but she's she's funny. She's very talented. I'm glad she moved on from. I think first time I saw her was in. They put her in Cruel Intentions 2 in the Sarah Michelle Gellar part.
I never would have picked that up.
It was terrible, and the thing, it's a terrible movie anyway. But it's what's the worst casting you can imagine is, we need someone to play a cold, frustrated, manipulative seductress. Oh yeah, Amy Adams.
I have to say this because John would want me to say it.
Yeah.
Maniacal laugh. Maniacal laugh.
Yeah. Chris Cooper, great in the Muppets. Don't want to say too much about him because it's great and you should see it for yourself. But if you haven't seen the Muppets, see the Muppets.
Yeah, that was one of the honorable mentions that I had.
Nice.
I wanted to put that on my top 10. I've also noticed that we really haven't disagreed about anything here.
No,
you haven't put anything on your list that has made me think what the fuck?
No, so far
are you
not.
Thinking?
We'll see.
Knock on wood. Moving on to number 5.
Yes.
You possibly have this in your top 5. I suspect we may get into some crossover again here, but I went with Hugo.
Okay, yeah.
The Scorsese flick. I think I was a little mean-spirited to this in my review.
Yeah.
If anyone who's listening to this had listened to John and my review last month, I felt that I was in a bad mood that night, and I felt like the film. I felt like the film was like pandering or patronizing critics because it was it was putting everything in there that we love.
No, that's the artist.
Film and just basically a love of film.
Yeah.
And Méliès and just the whole inner workings of this train station. Is fascinating, and Scorsese's ability as a filmmaker to just like do what he does, man. It's just like I've said this before. When I really like some things. When I really like some things, there's a little bit of resentment in me.
Yeah.
And I end up like, fuck you.
Yeah, you got
for
me.
Hating.
Penetrating.
Or fuck you for like doing something so goddamn well.
Yeah.
Asshole.
I liked Hugo. I don't know that I loved Hugo. I didn't have a problem with it. I think if I have a criticism of Hugo, it would be, and again, for people who didn't see Hugo, or since the trailers aren't actually telling you what Hugo's about a young boy who's homeless. His father is dead. He's living inside the walls of the Paris metro train station.
And I didn't like they changed the title. I want to say that really quickly, that it was the invention of Hugo Cabret, and that was the title. It's a great title. They went with Hugo because, what is it, like a fucking Broadway play?
Well, because they want, because they,
so,
there's this whole
whatever.
thing. There's this whole thing out there now that if you don't have the most descriptive title, people won't go to see it because it's sort of like you notice that they don't put "the" in movie titles anymore. I don't know if this is true, but I have been told by people in the industry that they don't put "the" in front of movies because they're afraid it will screw up the search function on Fandango.
Think of it this way: the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus would just be Imaginarium.
Yeah, or Dr. Parnassus. Yeah, or that's a Terry Gilliam movie, so they know people aren't going to go anyway, so they just let it fly. But with this one, I like the movie. It's about the kid. He's living in the train station. He's trying to put together an old automaton robot toy that his father left him. He comes into a relationship with a mysterious old man played by Ben Kingsley who runs a toy shop.
Yeah, in the train station.
And his granddaughter or adopted granddaughter. And it ends up, to not spoil big chunks of the movie, but it ends up that the old man is connected to the robot in some way and that he's secretly someone very important. And then in the second half, the movie kind of turns into a different movie that is about this older man and his history. And I think
it's like helping a man reconnect himself with the people who love him.
Right.
Who really appreciated a man who felt unappreciated.
Yeah.
In a world that wasn't connected, he helped him connect to it.
Yeah.
Strangely.
And I think I liked that movie. I think I liked because Hugo is sort of two movies. At first it's a movie about this kid, and then you find out. It's
fascinating because it's like an orphan living in a train station who is hiding the fact that his father passed away some months ago, but yet he still keeps the clocks going.
Right.
And by doing so, he's kept himself at bay from Sacha Baron Cohen, who's the inspector in the station, who basically is set up early on as being the orphan catcher bad guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Who has his own sort of side story relationship going on, I think, with what's her name, Emily, somebody I forget. Watson.
I forget her. I forget it. No, it wasn't Emily Watson. It was someone. It's a newer actress. But I like the first half, which is the kid in the train.
Oh,
station.
Emily Mortimer.
Emily Mortimer. Yeah, she's terrific. But I really like the second half. I just wish that the two sort of came together better, because once the second half comes up and it's about,
no, you're right. It is, in a way, it's kind of two movies,
and it's about and suddenly it becomes like you watch me and you wonder, like, why did Martin Scorsese want to make a 3D kids movie about a magic orphan? And then it becomes like
it explains itself.
It's actually a movie about the history of silent filmmaking, and also not just a movie about silent movies, but a pay-an, not just to silent filmmakers, but to the people who like silent filmmakers. I
think about, with great, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, well, I do think a lot of the reasons why a lot of, you hear your film critic friends and movie-loving friends and film student friends saying, you need to see Hugo, go see Hugo. It's because Hugo is really kissing their ass. And I mean that in a nice way.
Well, that's where I was how can we not like this? This is review proof.
In a nice way, because it's not just saying that, silent movies are great, but it's also saying you, the people who remember movies and preserve them and love them and review them and tell your friends, you are like saints who can save an old man from an early death and that thing. So in that respect, it's a little bit of, It's as self-congratulatory as Martin Scorsese has ever been.
It's a wonderful Spielberg film that only Scorsese could make.
That should be on the box. That's fantastic.
The other thing is that when we assumed that we knew what Scorsese was doing, everybody was second guessing him. Like, why did he take this project?
Yeah.
But I think great directors explain themselves. If not during the process within the film, like a really great director can direct themselves out of implausibilities.
Exactly.
Scorsese seems to be able to direct himself out of misunderstandings.
Yeah.
Out of people's preconceptions of what he should be doing. And it's usually, we can talk about a movie, but until you see the actual artifact of film, the actual thing, that's kind of like, what they bank everything on. It's just, it explains itself. It's a little long, and also it's not edited frantically. It's edited at a very wonderful pace.
Yeah, this is a settle in.
It's a nice film.
This is a settle in and calm down sort of movie. This is not something to see if you've got.
Oh my God, this is not frantic stuff. Disney children's film.
Yeah, no, this is which is what the trailers are selling. The trailers are selling the first half of the movie and the last 10 minutes where the kid is running away from Sacha Baron Cohen, because they can't tell you about the silent movie stuff because that's a surprise.
And it's not a sell.
Yeah, it's not. You're not going to get like the Family Guy coming out. It's like, let's see a movie about the a semi-fictionalized retelling of the rediscovering of silent film auteur George Méliès. Oh boy, can we stop at Chuck E. Cheese first?
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Starring Ben Kingsley.
Yeah, but terrific movie, and a good Ben Kingsley performance, which used to be something that you could always count on. And then he started turning up in like Blood Rain.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I think with money, Uwe Boll can do what he wants.
Uwe Boll.
I always mispronounce the guy's last name.
The German
and I just saw in the name of the whatever with Dolph Lundgren, Two Worlds last night.
They made a sequel to In the Name of the King?
Oh, fuck. What is it called? It's called, In the Name of the King 2, Two Worlds.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, now I have to see this. Oh, well, no, I don't.
I'm throwing the movie at Bob.
Who's it? Dolph Lundgren and who? Let's see, now I got to see this. Who's Dolph Lundgren and someone who I'm not going to be rude and look up, but
even I briefly watched the making of stuff last night, and yes, Dolph Lundgren was admitting that he'd never seen anything that Uwe Boll had made.
Well, I don't
and
think
that he had heard people's criticisms, and so from behind him, while he's doing this set on the interview. While he's doing his interview on the set, Uwe Boll walks up from behind him. Okay, enough of the dissing me.
It's
a cheap ass movie with cheap ass CGI.
Uwe Boll makes terrible movies. He's made one great movie, which is Rampage, which is a killing spree movie.
I think he's got the capability to actually do something.
Oh, he's got talent. He's a better producer than he is a director because he really knows how to make a more expensive movie than it looks like and corral all of these actors.
Oh, this movie is as cheap as it looks.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it costs less than even it looked like knowing his usual schedule. But
I was fascinated. This isn't we're not really doing our best of 2011 right now.
Yeah.
But I was fascinated by the time shift in the movie.
Okay.
But it's just confusing.
Moving on.
Moving on.
That was number
5.
Your number 5. My number 5 is Drive.
Sweet.
This was an action film with Ryan Gosling. This is basically the art house version of The Transporter. Ryan Gosling is this guy who's seems to be either sort of like a functioning sociopath or kind of like a higher plane.
He's
autism.
A deadened individual.
Yeah, well, there
is a happiness that his character is certainly missing. Not to say that he's a bad person.
No, but there's something else up there.
There's a huge chunk of his puzzle that has been removed.
Well, it's one of those things that I think like back in the day you would have said that this guy was like shell shocked or something. And I look at this now, I'm thinking, maybe this character is supposed to be like higher functioning autism sort of thing going on. But he's one of these guys who's like crazy efficient, barely functions as a social human being, but is really good at driving a car for getaway driving. Like he's a machine behind the wheel, and he gets involved in and about the same time with a woman whose husband is in jail and is raising a kid on her own, and a criminal conspiracy that spirals out of control involving his sort of
boss.
His boss, his crime facilitator, Albert Brooks as a like a movie producer turned gangster, and Ron Perlman as a Jewish mob boss. And it's a very simple story of a guy who is wronged by criminals he was working with and kind of goes on, okay, now let's get some revenge. But it's like the really smart version of that with great characters, really good acting, great performances by Ryan Gosling and Carey Mulligan.
Potential best supporting actor performance from
Albert Brooks.
Yeah.
Yeah, Albert, like, this is one of those movies that when you see, it's unique to sometimes see a movie with film critics, because people who are movie stars to critics are different than people who are movie stars to the general public. So we're seeing this and the credits going up. It's like, oh yeah, hey, Ryan Gosling, the guy my mom thinks is hot because he's got the six pack and the crazy stupid love. Or
this is the film I think that like made him a movie star amongst critics.
Yeah, but then the critics of it's like Albert Brooks, and we're like, what? Albert Brooks? Oh, happy day. And he's playing like this violent, dark mob boss, and it's totally different than anything he's ever done, and he just nails it. And he's such a good bad guy. And if he does not
casting me like that, I mean, I would have asked the director, where the hell did he get this?
Maybe he knows him, or just maybe had a feeling.
Seen another side of him.
I don't know. I mean, like why Ron Perlman's in this, because Ron Perlman is he's a guy you hire to play big, imposing, larger than life bad guy.
Yeah, with the gravelly voice and everything he says has this certain resonance.
Yeah, I mean, because he's that guy. But like Albert Brooks, you look at this and you're thinking, wow, like that's like different sort of casting, and yet it works. And and now that you see it, I'm like, my God, this is so perfect. Why didn't someone do this sooner?
This film does a terrific job at playing on just like tension.
Yeah.
Now, and what I mean by that is not just the tension, but like I think Refn, the director, has this ability. He knows when to press down, when to push it, and when to pull back.
Right.
And this movie is about tension and payoff. And there are scenes in this movie when they get to a certain point, when because this movie is played through the point of view of Ryan Gosling's character,
who is only ever called the driver. He doesn't have a name.
Yeah, it's as if we're in tune with his psychology. And when in his mind he hits a point where shit's going to happen, there are a couple of moments in this movie that are just almost mesmerizing in what you're seeing on the screen. The payoff of what's happening, just the few words that he's going to say, or the few things that he does, like I'm thinking of just two mesmerizing scenes. One that takes place in the hotel. Yep. The other one that takes place, well, there's three. One in the hotel, one in the stripper's dressing room. Yes. And then the other in the elevator, which they ruin in the trailer.
Yeah, the trailer shows you the elevator scene, which is, it doesn't show you like everything that happens.
Best you not know about that.
Yeah, but it's one of those movies. This is one of those action characters that we don't see enough of anymore, who doesn't think there's anything particularly clever or impressive about his ability to inflict violence. It's just something he does.
It's the way that this film is constructed is just that it allows you to breathe, but then when it says hold your breath, like we're not going to like we've got you, and we're not going to release you just yet. It's the push and pull of drama, and that is an example of a really good knowledge of perception and timing and payoff. Like you can film this script a number of different ways. Oh, yeah. But the way the hotel scene pays off, I mean, I just can't explain it. You have to see how it's executed in this film. It's just masterful.
Yeah, this is old time.
And I feel uncomfortable saying that because I don't like to throw around the word masterful.
No, this is just like an innate knowledge of how, action works in this sort of movie.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's old fashioned 70s, style,
and it works so well. They've captured something like that. Actually, I would amend that to say that it's like risky business 80s type of something. There's something neon LA about it.
Well, it's definitely doing like an LA in the 80s sort of thing. It has that kind of coked out vibe to it. I mean, like, everything you need to know about the level that this movie is playing is that it's, its font for its credits are in pink script, and Ryan Gosling's character wears throughout the movie a silver driving jacket with a scorpion on the back of it. Right. So it's very much like that. But in terms of tone, it's very similar to, if you people who remember like movies like Bullet. where it's just tough guy goes in, bang, 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 and then, moving on. We're here. It's not, no filler, no BS.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets right to it. I don't want to overdo it on this film.
Yeah.
I really don't, because it's just, it's an experience.
Yeah.
That's probably best left to not knowing much about it.
Yeah. It's good. Watch it.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're number 5, Steve.
Well, we're gonna have some time. We're gonna save some time here because I picked. Let me see. My number 5. Well, actually, it would be my number 4.
Okay.
And I picked. I picked Drive.
Oh, you had Drive for number 5 as well. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess we can just move on to your next one.
My number 4 was this was a British movie. Got a limited release here. Did pretty well.
Go ahead.
Attack the Block.
Damn, man.
Yeah,
I was gonna. That's another one I was gonna put on my list.
Yeah.
No severe disagreement here.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah. It's Attack the Block is a movie where basically there's a block is British slang for a housing project, basically, and the idea is it's an alien invasion movie that takes place entirely in and around a British council house, which is a housing project. So it's inner city thug children, basically, versus monsters from space. So, very similar to a lot of movies that were made in the 80s where you had, young kids fighting off waves of monsters, be it like Critters or like the happy version in E.T. or something like that, or the Monster Squad, I guess would be like the 80s equivalent. The difference being most movies like that, these sort of like, movies that are aimed at they're sort of like, made for movie nerds kind of movies with sci-fi illusions. They usually focus around, not to mince words, white suburban kids, because that's what the filmmakers are and that's what they remember. And in this one, it's not like the most original thing in the world story-wise. Visually, it's very original. It's made by Joe Cornish, who's a partner of Edgar Wright, who did Scott Pilgrim and the Simon Pegg, Nick Frost movies. The thing about this that's kind of refreshing, and also I know made it hard to get into for some people, not without reason, is that it takes this genre that's usually about, young kids versus monsters. It's going to be a bunch of white suburban teenage nerds. And instead, it's a predominantly black cast group of inner city children versus these monsters. And it's an entirely different vibe because their life and their experiences have them reacting to these things in an entirely different way. So instead of getting the Spielbergian wonder shot of looking at people gazing at the colored lights of the aliens,
this could be the 2011 version, of Super 8.
Right. Or like Super 8, where instead of being like, fascinated by them or wanting to figure out how the story part of them works, these guys are like, oh, fuck no, they came in my neighborhood. They're getting fucked up. This is a movie where people's first reaction to an alien showing up is to chase after them and beat it to death.
Little empathy.
Yeah, it's a different, and I know this makes the movie. A lot of people found it kind of hard to sympathize.
Well, it could be because you're doing it in a public building block as opposed to a cookie cutter suburb.
It's not the nice little cul-de-sac from E.T. These are kids who've seen some hard lives. I mean, and for a lot of people, which I understand, this was a hard movie to like or get into because these kids are not just superficially Hollywood tough kids. They're actually a bunch of punks, they're muggers and thieves, that we open the movie and they're mugging this poor woman.
Well, it plays into the protagonists have some real issues here, so and they don't make themselves they're not written as immediately likable.
They're not the most likable, but I think, and the problem is too many movies, like sci-fi movies with a youth-oriented bent, are made by people who had my childhood for me. And it was so cool to see one that was saying, no, here's an entirely different group of people who never get to be the hero and stars of these kind of movies. Yeah. And this is how they'd react. And it's a different sort of thing, not just because it's British, but because it's people who have real problems. In most movies like this, they're kids whose worst problem is, oh man, the girl's not asking me to the dance. Like the worst problem kids usually have in the, youth-oriented, scary monster movie is maybe someone's parents are divorced.
Here it seems to be like it's the people you're hanging out with. It's where you live. It's the influences in your immediate environment.
Yeah. and it drives the thrust of the action in a different way, because these kids are not blown away or amazed or elated by the existence of extraterrestrial life, like
They
Nick
seem
Frost.
to treat it like a whatever.
Yeah, well, they treat it like that, but also it's territorial. It's like, oh no, you don't come in my neighborhood and start shit. It's like they don't care. The tagline for the movie was inner city versus outer space, and that's pretty much what you need to know about it. Again, a lot of people didn't care for it because they said, I can't sympathize with these kids. The movie doesn't really ask you to sympathize with them until, they start realizing with the aliens as a metaphor for it that, hey, your stupid little crime actions have some consequences.
And it's benefits from the fact that none of the characters are immediately, except for Nick Frost, identifiable.
Yeah, these are new faces, and a lot of the main kid who plays the character Moses, or Mos, they call him in the movie, he's really a find. And who kind of...
Yeah, he's going to have a future, apparently.
He goes from someone who, seems like a character that we wouldn't necessarily sympathize with because he's tough and hard and whatnot, and sort of transitions into being almost like a young black Snake Plissken, almost.
From a pop culture standpoint, you're going to love it for all its references.
Oh, yeah.
From a genre standpoint, you're going to dig the monsters.
Yep.
They are unusual.
Yeah, it's a different sort of alien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put that on my honourable mention as
Nice.
well. Moving on to number 3.
Yeah,
I guess.
rock on. Your number 3.
Yeah. I went with. I was having a push and pull between Drive and this film, Source Code.
Ooh, good.
The Duncan
good
Hines.
Yes.
The Duncan Jones. Did I just reveal my decade of influence?
Duncan Jones.
I'm gonna go spread some frosting on the cake right now.
Director of Moon, son of David Bowie.
Yes. A lot of people seem to forget about that or didn't know.
He doesn't brag about it.
No, he seems like a down to earth guy, but holy crap, his dad is Ziggy Stardust.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about not down to earth. Yeah. But apparently he went to art school somewhere in Ohio, and he studied film, and he seems to be. He knows this. We interviewed him. It's sort of like he's a younger guy, but he's sort of like where Christopher Nolan was with Memento in terms of his career.
Yeah, this is a guy who's breaking out. Big Moon was a terrific movie.
He's working towards larger responsibilities.
Yeah, Source Code. Now this was when we were. This is Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yes, the
lead character in this one. He is a guy who is being zapped. He's like a soldier who's being zapped back into the past, into someone else's brain.
Right. I forget exactly how much time do you get. You get how much time?
I think he gets an hour, doesn't he? Something like that. Either an hour or 10 minutes.
Hold on a second. I'm going to Wikipedia this.
He. Oh, are you going to? And
yeah, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page right now just to see how much time they get before the actual bomb goes off on this train.
It's a certain amount of time. There's someone bombed a train, and they have this technology where they're zapping a soldier backwards in time into someone else's brain, so that he can.
Yeah, and I think you can. Is it you can choose the person? I forget.
I think it's that they had to have a close profile. There's some sort of business about like genetics or DNA or something that they have to zap him back into. But the main point is
8 minutes.
Yeah, yep. So we can travel so we can travel back in time and relive the last 8 minutes of someone who died. The idea is this person died in a terrorist bombing, and they're trying to figure out.
Right. Okay, now I'm getting my my source code flashback right now. That he's being put into the body of Bridget Moynihan's boyfriend, who's sitting across from her on the train.
Yeah,
and this is the last 8 minutes of their life. Basically, Gyllenhaal's body matches the specifics of her boyfriend.
Right.
So she thinks, Moynihan's character thinks that she's seeing her boyfriend, but Gyllenhaal, it's him, and he has all the prior knowledge. He's basically on a repetitive 8-minute mission to step by step put together all the pieces as to who on this train planted the bomb.
Right.
And we get there incrementally, little by little. In a way, it's like Groundhog Day on acid. You get it like in 8 minutes. All the same things start happening.
Yeah, it's a cool just because it's an interesting enough twist already that it's similar to Deja Vu, the Denzel Washington movie, where they're rewinding time to find out who perpetrated a crime that's already been committed, but then throws in all this extra layer about, okay, you're also jumping into someone else's body, so you have to negotiate with, this other person who thinks you're someone else, and also, hey, maybe can we change time? Are there alternate timelines? And Duncan Jones is one of these guys who makes science fiction movies who's actually as interested in the science as he is in the character possibilities.
Yes, and very adeptly executed. Yeah. Now, this is different in the way that Drive is done in terms of like the push and pull of the drama.
Yeah.
Here, this is a movie that is based on very strict time elements, conciseness, and being able to do things repetitively in film terms, but being able to compress that each time. Yeah. Because if we had to relive this every 8 fucking minutes or whatever the film version of 8 minutes is, it would it would be monotonous.
Yeah.
But the time is compressed. Each time you go back, he compresses it to the moment where you learn something new. A little more about the person who dropped this wallet, a little more about the person who got off on this stop, a little more about this universe.
Yeah.
Basically this possible non-reality.
Right.
That Jeffrey Wright's character has been able to tap into because he discovered something with light bulbs that says, when you see a light bulb and a light bulb flickers out, there's actually a resonance.
Mm.
And we've discovered something inside this that allows us to go back for 8 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's like, is he living in the real world or not?
Yeah.
And maybe we shouldn't go that too. We don't want to spoil. Yeah. But it's just really well executed.
It's nice to see a sci-fi movie where you don't have to choose between really good science and really good characters, because usually it's one or the other. Usually it's, well, the science is really interesting and hard, but the people around it are kind of boring. Or it's, well, the people are interesting, but the science is goofy. This is both.
I've just loved the fact that this year we've had some really good science-related science fiction films. And I would add to this The Adjustment Bureau.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't make that a top 10 film, but it was fascinating. Bit of science fiction.
Definitely an interesting attempt.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen Source Code, it's got to be out there on DVD.
Oh yeah, Source Code's on Blu-ray
by now. Definitely check it out. I think it's going to be bypassed by a lot of people, but when it came out, it was really well reviewed and well liked amongst a lot of people. And I think that this film, it's not forgettable.
Yeah.
It's not forgettable in the sense that last night I saw Man on a Ledge and it was okay.
Yeah.
But, wow.
Yeah.
There's something to Source Code, is what I have to say.
Yeah. Do we want to go?
I'm on to you, Bob.
On to me? All right. Throw it to Bob. Like Source Code, my number 3 was a movie that I was not expecting to work. Which was X-Men First Class.
Nice.
Which is, for, recapping, historical things.
Yeah, I was really pissed at Matthew Vaughn for this one, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
When we said that Fox had a good year for genre movies, what you have to understand that in the context of is that for about a decade now, Fox has been the crappiest studio for genre movies. They've made, bad movies out of good franchises, and sort of the poster child for that was the X-Men movies, where they had these 2 really good movies made by Bryan Singer, which, along with Blade and the first Spider-Man, were really the movies at the beginning of the 21st century that created the boom in comic book movies. And I would
say that they got off track with Wolverine.
Yeah, I would say they got off track
There was something that didn't,
The Wolverine was terrible, but even before that, they did X-Men 1 and X-Men 2, and X-Men 2, ends and is a fantastic movie and sets up like, oh man, this is really going places. And then Bryan Singer left to make a Superman movie, which turned out okay. It's not terrible.
So you're saying we went off the rails with Brett Ratner?
And Fox took this great movie, which was made by a smart director, and turned it over to the director of the Rush Hour movie.
They basically kicked Bryan Singer off the set.
They didn't. No, well, he left of his own accord.
Not off the set, out of the studio.
Yeah, not out of the studio. Well, he left of his own accord, and Fox didn't want to wait to make another X-Men movie, so they said, oh no, we're just going to use Brett Ratner, because people's contracts were expiring, and X-Men 3 is... X-Men 3 The Last Stand is just an unmitigated piece of shit. It's a terrible movie. It destroyed that franchise, or so we thought, and then they made a Wolverine movie.
It is, I think I need to say at this point that, I don't know, for journalistic integrity, I was on the set of X-Men 3.
Okay.
I did interview Brett Ratner, and I did see them film a number of things, the Cyclops, Kitty Pryde chase.
Yeah.
what's his name getting stabbed there at the end of the bridge.
Okay.
You know, and basically the mutant war that happens at the foot of the Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, I saw stuff being done.
Yeah.
When I saw the final product of the film, I was shocked at how quickly paced everything was.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to convey over editing and whatnot in too many angles and just a sense of perspective that was just moving too fast for me.
It's a bad movie.
But that's what I got from this.
Yeah.
You know?
X-Men 3 was terrible. And then they did Wolverine, X-Men Origins. And what has happened in the movie business that's caused a lot of interesting stuff is that Marvel, who owns a lot of these characters, had previously licensed their characters out to other studios to make movies. Then Marvel made their own studio, and they've been making these Avengers tie-ins. And all of the studios are in a mad rush, the guys who already licensed characters, to keep making movies in that series, even if they're not good, in order to hold on to the character.
It's interesting that Marvel Studios can't do X-Men.
No, they can't, because Marvel owns the X-Men, but Fox owns the movie rights to the X-Men.
I wonder for how long.
They've
certainly extended it, and I don't think Marvel can be disappointed with what Fox did with First Class.
Yeah, no. For what I'm sort of
or Matthew Vaughn.
Yeah, halfway lunging into here is that Fox had a very limited time to make another X-Men movie before they lost the franchise. So they very hurriedly threw, a bunch of, money and characters at Matthew Vaughn, who made Kick-Ass, who was supposed to do X-Men 3 originally, and then got booted in favor of Brett Ratner because Fox didn't like his vision of things. And I guess his vision of things was okay now, because he makes X-Men First Class, which is an origin story for the entirety of the X-Men universe, with Professor Xavier and Eric Lencher, who will become Magneto.
Man, I was so nervous. I thought it was going to be like X-Men Twilight.
Yeah, and this could have gone so wrong, but it's like they've made every right decision they could. They have fantastic actors, such a good script, setting it in the 1960s. And more importantly, letting that 1960s setting allow them to more fully embrace the kind of colorful cartoon superhero nature of the X-Men franchise and have more fun with it.
And the movie tops our expectations.
Oh, yeah.
And the special effects actually astonished me. The levitation of the submarine, I was like, what the fuck? That was cool.
There are some dodgy special effects in this movie, and then there's some really good ones, like the ones that need
the dodgy. Count. I think it was the establishing shot of Las Vegas.
That was unfortunate. There's some business there. There's, January Jones keeps turning into diamonds, and it doesn't really work. But there's like a character who flies, two characters who fly, and it's the best person flying probably ever. It just looks fantastic. And it's, for especially for...
What was that character's name again? I wasn't totally, into that particular character. I mean, I know that you're going to have, certain... not knowing as much as I know that you know about the X-Men lore.
The two who fly?
Yeah.
The girl with wings was... I
was talking about the guy. But her...
she was... I think they codenamed her Angel. Banshee is the guy who yells at the ground and can fly. Right. Which is a silly power, but they make it look interesting.
If I recall, there's a deleted scene that develops his character a little more.
Probably, I haven't been through the deleted stuff yet.
But I didn't. I thought it was going to be some high school bullshit going on with him. But
right, it's and especially for since this has the weight of those other movies that have come before them. This is now I've seen and read the the backstory of Charles Xavier and Magneto so many times in so many different versions, but this new version of it really does a smart thing, which is it inverts them. The idea that since we've already seen them as old men, where one of them are, in these X-Men movies, there are these people called mutants who are born with superpowers and the rest of the world doesn't like them. And they're a metaphor for, in the 60s, it was a metaphor for the civil rights movement. In the Bryan Singer films, and certainly in the modern comics, it's a metaphor for,
discrimination.
For discrimination in general, but very specifically in the Bryan Singer movies, they're a metaphor for the gay rights movement. There's the scene where the Iceman kid tells his parents he's a mutant, and their response is, have you tried not being mutant? And it's like, well, gee, what's this supposed to represent?
Well, you know what's emotionally affecting about this film? Well, among a number of things, but really it's just that the mutants who in future films are for and future, stories, history of the X-Men, are ardently against each other, were at one time not.
Yeah.
And it's as if they were all trying to do the same, like Democrats and Republicans, all trying to do the same, all trying to be good.
Right, yeah.
But they have different ways of going about doing it. And when you have this split between someone who is your friend, them wanting to improve their lives, them wanting to do something better, and then there's this split, it hurts.
Yeah. Well,
it hurts. Yeah. It's like, how can you see Mystique as a bad person?
Yeah,
when you saw that she's innately really a good person, but it's like the closeness of the light side, dark side sort of scenario.
Well, she's Mystique is of course the mutant who can look like anyone, but her default form is she kind of looks like a blue lizard person. And in this movie, she spends a lot of her time kind of undercover as like a conventional looking blonde girl. And then, sort of a third of the way through the movie, she meets young Magneto, who tells her, like, maybe you should just be blue all the time. I mean, that's who you are. Why not? And it's like, you can see like the gears turn over.
I'd be fine with it.
Jennifer Lawrence is gorgeous. I don't care what color she is. And in the future, she's Rebecca Romaine, so this is working out just fine.
And basically, you get to be naked.
Yeah, she just walks around blue all day, and it's cool. But what I like about this is that it's always been part of the X-Men mythology that Charles Xavier and Magneto are mutant rights guys, one of whom is the work with people guy, and one of whom is militant. And in the comics, it was supposed to be Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X, the get-along guy versus the militant guy. In this movie, we already know that they're going to end up there. We already know Magneto becomes the mutant rights terrorist, and Xavier becomes the we'll train mutants to be superheroes, and then everyone will like us guy. At the start of this movie, Magneto is a guy who survived a concentration camp, who is basically already a superhero. Like, he's the first X-Man. He's traveling the world, killing Nazis and meting out justice. He's like Jewish, superpowered James Bond. And Xavier, as a young man, well, he's a good guy. He grew up rich. He's never really had any problems, and he mainly uses his mutant power to meet girls.
But I think there's also a difference in their social interaction.
Yeah.
In other words, Magneto has the ability to meet girls and charm them, and he's more of the nightclub guy, whereas Xavier is the introvert, the board gamer.
Except he's not the guy who wants to be like when we meet Xavier in this movie. In the future movies, we know Xavier is like this saintly figure who is, he's in a wheelchair and he's good to everyone, and he's like Patrick Stewart, and he's a guy. And in this one, he's kind of a dick when we first meet him. He's completely
I think there's a morally questionable moment.
Yeah, for a guy, he uses his ability to read minds, which he could use to do anything, chiefly to advance himself in school and to get laid. He's all about, he's very presumptive of what's right for everyone. He's just kind of like, well, I'm here. He's, completely emotionally ignorant of Mystique, who is, been living with him and clearly has some complicated feelings to him, which he is completely callous about.
Well, ultimately, I think it's the difference of the moral issue. If you're a mutant and you have the ability to walk through a wall into a bank, take the money. Yeah. And so Magneto says, well, you can do it. What are you holding back for? Take the money.
Yeah. Except Magneto.
Should they not be afraid of us? Yeah. They're just acting out of fear.
Well, what's great is that this movie has to tell us how these guys were friends and then got to where they are. And it's such a great twist to it that something bad, I won't spoil the movie, but something bad happens that sort of shocks both of these guys who for a while are both kind of idealistic about what mutants can be in society and kind of causes them to split off. But what's great is that it's a horrible event that sort of smacks Xavier, who's this kind of, Johnny be good, good time Charlie kind of guy. It sort of hits him upside the head and says, hey, reality, shape your shit up. And this will make him become this leader that we see later. But whereas Magneto, who's just the most awesome heroic guy in the world in this movie, it hits him and it's the thing that puts him over the line and kind of ends him as a hero and says, no, I'm going to be the angry, dark, villain guy. And it's such a nifty twist to that these are not that these guys were not the guys we know them as young men. They were almost completely different. And these same circumstances, turns one guy and takes one guy who's kind of a dick and makes him a better guy, and takes another guy who was like Batman and turns him into, a really bad dude later on.
What I can sense from this is that, like, a lot more about the X-Men than I do. So I think narratively it satisfies the fans.
Yeah, I think so. But it works.
In a pleasing way. But I think that, like, with a person with a limited knowledge of X-Men that I have, it works as cinematically as a film.
Yeah, you don't need to know X-Men.
Like, I don't feel like I want to go read X-Men comics, but I watched this movie and I'm fully entertained by it.
But you want to see the next one.
Sure.
Yeah, I want to see what
absolutely
happens to these guys.
Absolutely, but I don't have the knowledge of or the feeling that I need to have it work with the canon that's already there.
Right. Although it does fit in with the other movies, except that it deletes the third one and Wolverine from continuity. So those can't have happened anymore.
Does this work in any sort of like alternate universe sort of?
I don't know that it's
thing. Like the way Star Trek did, not so blatantly, but I'm led to wonder.
I don't know that they're saying it officially. I think they're kind of hedging their bets because they didn't change anyone's story of how old they were for things like none of the X-Men who were teenagers in the other movies are in this one, except for one who maybe doesn't get any older, that, so that they wouldn't screw up the continuity. So they've used a new crop of people, but certain events relating to when a certain character can no longer walk makes certain scenes in X-Men 3 and Wolverine impossible.
Are you just saying that you were just saying that to avoid the spoiler of a cameo?
More or less, yeah.
Two great cameos in this movie.
Really killer.
And one of them I want to say, Michael Lang. I mean, that's not the spoiler commentary.
Yeah,
I mean, it's nice to see him. A supporting character.
Yeah. Well, there's two future character cameos. But
I don't recall the other one.
I'll tell you off mic.
Okay, good idea.
I don't want to spoil them. But it's so I loved First Class, so that was my number 3.
Cool. I don't think I can expound on it any further, other than to say, like, see this movie, people. I'm sure everybody has fucking seen it.
Just watch it. It's great.
I think you're going to probably concur with me on this next one if it isn't your choice. Captain America, the First Avenger.
Captain America is in fact also my number 2.
I mean, how could you not?
Yeah.
I mean, holy shit. If anything came closer to a perfect fucking movie.
Yeah.
And for something for me, obviously, to be really pissed about.
Yeah.
Then yes.
Yeah.
So.
Captain
it's
America.
like Joe Johnston did it.
Yeah.
He's tried, he's had some really, in a way I kind of thought he was like Ron Howard, because Ron Howard in a sense has never made a film that like really was over the top awesome for me. I mean, he's made these really good films and he's an excellent filmmaker, but he's always like kind of like 70% there,
right?
But never over the top.
Right. Joe
Johnston. I mean, I loved The Rocketeer.
Yeah.
I kind of liked Wolfman.
Yeah, Wolfman was good.
For all its faults and for all its production speed bumps and horribleness as far as that goes. I mean, I liked October Sky.
Yeah,
I liked even all the problems that apparently happened on Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah.
Jumanji seemed to me like a Joe Johnston type film, because it's it's semi-fantasy, techno.
Well, he's a journeyman who knows how to integrate special effects very well.
Something happened here. I mean, you could take his experience and say that all of his experience built this movie.
Yeah, he's been driving towards this one for a long time, most notably in The Rocketeer, but of the things that he was always really well known for, he was known for making very plausible, character-grounded movies with fantastical elements, and also for being really good at period, World War II, pre-World War II stuff.
Like, to me, he was strangely like sub-Spielbergian.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like sort of doing that, but in a way that made studio executives happy. Like he got the job done.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the easiest kind of thing, and they kind of felt like, well, we get a little of the Spielberg thing with him, we get a little of the whole new CGI thing with him, and he's just really creative that way. But something fucking just converged.
Yeah, this is the perfect match of filmmaker and material and studio, because one of the challenges of working with Marvel Studios that we're finding out that a lot of they're having directors leave projects and whatnot is that Marvel is a studio that is building everything on a schedule. So they need these movies to get done and come out, and your character choices and the script and the costumes are pretty much set in stone because they need to show up against in the Avengers. A lot of directors who are, more auteur type guys or women are not going to work well in that situation. Joe Johnston has made a lot of producer driven movies, and he's very good. This is a guy who you can hire and the movie will come out pretty damn good. And this time, this is a guy who knows
he's a high competency level.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that.
He is one of those guys like him, Joe Dante, and Robert Zemeckis were sort of like the training Spielbergs in the 80s, the guys that, Steven can't do this one, but these guys will give us that sort of feeling, but on a budget and on time. But this is just such a killer movie. I don't know that I need to tell anyone the premise of Captain America. He's a patriotic superhero who fights, magical Nazis in World War II. And it's just a killer movie.
Here's a theory. Some of these first entries in the, these superhero movies like, like Batman, Superman, what have you, they get bogged down in exposition.
Yes.
Possibly this is what Captain America does well. I'm just thinking this through, is that it handles its exposition, which is entirely necessary for the character, is handled fantastically.
Yeah.
Like thoroughly entertainingly.
Yeah.
Like just the whole process of going through the whole, we know what's going to happen. He's got to go through the super soldier program. He's got to be selected. He's got to be dissed for his physical inabilities.
Yeah.
He's got to get to this point where, he's Captain America, but the troops are laughing at him.
Yeah.
And even in at the height of the absurd version of Captain America, where it's at its its jingoistic pageantry, it is awesome. It's just entertaining and really feel good. And then there's the dark switch.
Yeah.
Where it gets to that point where you're like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
That works.
It's we were not every superhero's origin story needs to be a whole movie, and I think this is something that movie studios are going to need to learn, is that you don't always have to do here's how I got my powers as the first movie. With this one, the story of how he becomes Captain America really is interesting enough to make a whole movie out of. And
you really had to ground this shit because it's going to play into every how he reacts to everything. Is going to be this all-American guy.
Yeah, because you need to understand who this guy is if you're going to buy him as this guy who's, wearing an American flag as a uniform and throwing a shield at people. It's silly, and you need some kind of grounding in who this guy really is, and, and you need to like him. And the movie really does. I mean, this movie is on for a good 40 minutes before he gets, injected with the stuff and gets his powers. And then it's on for like another 20, 30 minutes before he's officially Captain America. So, I mean, this is a real good long story. And one of the ways it's able to do that, which is why I love this thing Marvel has been doing where all the movies are connected to one another. And they have this Avengers universe thing where all the characters, bleed into one another, is you have an origin story for another guy, the bad guys, Hydra and the Red Skull, who have this, magic weapon. And it's this weird out there idea that they've discovered a chunk of, the ancient Viking gods were real, and they found one of their magic doodads and they're using it to make weapons. In another movie, you would have to stop the movie in its tracks and spend like 20 minutes explaining how it is that the gods are real and where this is. Whereas this movie is able to say, nope, magic Norse stuff. Oh, what, you want to know where that comes from? We already explained that in Thor. Keep up. So this one is able to just hit the ground running and say, no, magic Nazi stuff. If you really want to know where it comes from.
Perhaps it did benefit from the exposition being, that fat being cut to another thing.
Yeah, Thor takes care of most of the exposition for everything magical in every Marvel movie now. Because they have that scene where Thor sits down with Natalie Portman and draws in the notebook and says, no, all the god stuff and all the legends and stuff, it happened. It just happened in space. And there's other stuff. So now they don't have to explain any of that again because they did it in Thor. That's done. So Captain America is able to have its bad guy.
It's bandwidth to another computer.
Yeah, right. Their bad guy finds a magical relic, and you don't have to waste time in the movie explaining how this works. And really, who cares how it works? You know, like the audience for this movie is like, 12-year-olds. They don't care how it works. They just care that it shoots blue lasers at stuff. And if you really need to know, what this does, it was in another movie that you probably already saw. So there you go. And it's just such a good movie. It works. It has a really ballsy, downbeat ending, which you don't usually see in this kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that there were moments in the film that topped my expectations, as I mentioned before. But not so much in violence, in humor.
Yeah.
Like it just bested itself with like a perfect line at the right time, like Indiana Jones shooting the guy with the with the sword. It just turns on our cinema expectations, get played with on a couple of occasions that I thought were great. And it has a couple of wow kills. Yeah. That really blew my mind.
Those are pretty awesome. And it also it moves fast, but it knows when to slow down and when to take advantage of having characters who are played by these really good character actors.
Hugo Weaving can't go any further without mentioning how damn good he is as Red Skull. Yeah. I mean, I know he's behind a mask and everything, but I think his mask and the fact that Hugo Weaving's face was just like malleable when we first see him. When we notice something's wrong, it just says something's
not right about you.
Imploded about his brain and mentality, like he's just mushed in the head.
Hugo Weaving is one of those guys like Robert Patrick who just innately gets how to play something that is not human but looks human. Robert Patrick in like the Terminator movies when he's with you, and it's that a guy who's like, there's something not right about you. And then when they reveal it, now of course obviously if you're a Captain America fan, you know who the Red Skull is. But I saw this movie a bunch of times in theaters, and every time we got to the reveal of that, a good half of the theater goes like, oh, holy shit. Yeah. What is that? This just got even weirder. Yeah. But also they understand that it's okay to slow down and have a scene where Dominic Cooper as Howard Stark, the father of Tony Stark, father of Iron Man, gets to just hang out with Captain America, and they just kind of chill and talk about girls or something.
Yeah, that's just so well written, their interaction.
Or Toby Jones and Tommy Lee Jones.
These minor, three excellent examples of minor characters that support this movie so well. Yeah. And then there's the other secret weapon, Haley Atwell. Yeah. Holy shit.
Good. Like, I mean, I don't want to keep doing this on the most, because every time we mention a female actress, it's like, oh yeah, but I mean, like, she is a really great actress. She looks appropriate for the era, but even still, this is one of the first times that I've seen in a movie where they do the thing where the girl that you usually see in uniform is suddenly dressed up to go out, and you go, wow, and you go, like, this time it's a legitimate, like the movie doesn't have to tell me I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
It's just a knockout.
Yeah.
And knockout.
And she looks right for the period. It's hard. There's a lot of times when you see these movies where they're like supposed to be in the 40s, and it's like, now people didn't look like that then. She looks like she just walked out of like 1945.
She does. And the demeanor of her character really works. I mean, she may be all that on the outside, but she's cold, dead, determined on the inside.
Yeah, you buy it when she's like, when she's like shooting at guys, and Captain America pushes her out of the way of a car, and she goes, "Hey, I had that guy," and I'm like, "Yeah, I buy that." She's tough, but
and then there's also Captain America's posse. Yeah. Which sort of brings to life the real comic book element of these other guys. Man, now I'm thinking that the movie is so well done with the supporting characters.
Yeah, it's just a well constructed. Like, I thought all of the Marvel movies were pretty good, but they've been solid B+ movies so far. Like the best one is, probably Thor, followed by the original Iron Man. And they're good. I'd give them all solid B+. Like, they're good. They're not quite like jumping up into like a Dark Knight level or a First Class level. Yeah. Captain America is. It's the one that's like the big one.
It is, and it is in such a way that I'm still sort of I'm still kind of don't believe it. Like, I see it over there on the shelf, and I think, someone will ask me, you want to watch it? Is it really that good? And I'm like, I can't believe it, but you know what? It is. Yeah, I don't believe it.
Of all of these that should have turned out silly, it's the one that's based on Captain America. who is, I mean, let's face it, it's silly that his name is Captain America and that he wears the red, white, and blue costume and he's, a guy from World War II and it's like John Wayne is walking around.
This
but
movie
it really
had,
kills.
it was hanging above an abyss of opportunity to be horrible.
Yeah, one misstep and this would suck. And they pulled it off. And it seems like backhanded praise. It's like Captain America. It doesn't suck, but it's like when you think of how bad this can go, and if you don't believe me, they've made 3 Captain America movies before this that were all terrible. Go on YouTube and watch them.
Can you watch Matt Salinger's version?
You can buy Matt Salinger's version. That one they actually released, which was god awful.
Yeah.
They did 2 TV movies in the 70s to try and piggyback on the Incredible Hulk, which are unbelievably bad. This was a fantastic movie.
Hey Bob, have you seen on the disc they have maybe it's online. There's a short film. There's a crossover film in which Clark Gregg as the agent is on his way.
Yeah, a funny thing happened on the way to Thor's hammer.
Exactly. Yeah, that takes place at a gas station. You've seen that? Yeah,
that's cool. Clark Gregg is Clark Gregg is the actor. He's a director who also acts. He plays Agent Coulson in pretty much all of the Marvel movies. He's like the second in command to Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson. And he's one of these guys that has like one joke to his character, which is this is the guy who's not impressed by superheroes because he already knows what's going on. So he's the guy who kind of walks on and says, yeah, great, you're the God of Thunder, whatever. Okay, I'm still going to debrief you. Oh yeah, you're Iron Man, super. I'm a government agent. I know shit you don't even believe. And one of the ways that these have kind of reflected back on each other is in Iron Man 2, there's a scene where the only time we see Clark Gregg break that facade of, it's like, I'm not impressed by anything, I'm very cynical about the whole superhero thing, is when Robert Downey Jr. finds a broken prototype of Captain America's shield among his father's old effects.
Yeah.
And he takes it out, and Tony Stark doesn't know what this is and doesn't care. And momentarily, Clark Gregg's icy resolve just kind of goes like, boom, just drops away. He's like, oh God, do you know what this is? And it's like, okay, why is he so impressed by that? Then we see Captain America, and you're like, yeah, this is the guy that Agent Coulson would have grown up like respecting and admiring, and would like know who this guy was. Now that scene makes more sense.
That's a good point. I can see that.
I can see that. It's when these are all together, it's going to be great to watch them all in like a clip. Once the Avengers has come out and be able to say, it's like, wow, this is like a 7-movie, single movie superhero thing.
They've got to be expecting like Harry Potter numbers for the Avengers.
I hope so. I hope the Avengers works. Fingers crossed. Because this whole experiment could still go tits up if that doesn't deliver.
Well, you know what? There's a podcast called Making It with Nikki, I forget her last name. Anyway, just Google Making It and then Joss Whedon podcast. Yeah. And she interviews him. Nice. He kind of gives, his perspective on why he did the Avengers, why he went with a rewrite from the ground up, because what they had he felt really couldn't happen. And what kind of inspired him to this, because I think he was kind of done with directing, but that may quell some people's fears.
I hope so.
And he sort of has like a, if it works, it works. But I think we've got something that works kind of mentality, and he's not afraid to fail. I felt better about the film after listening to that interview.
Yeah, fingers crossed, because if so, this is the one that changes everything. Because if this Marvel experiment where we're going to have everything in one universe like we do in the comics actually works, this could change everything about.
Well, it could. I think it's just gonna come together like a bow tie, and then everything will split off into continued chapters of whatever character.
Well, they've said they want to make at least 3 movies for every character, plus 3 Avengers movies, and they're gonna go off and have more movies with more characters who will maybe be Avengers later. So that like maybe if they can't get all the actors back for Avengers 2, it'll be a whole new one, because they've greenlit like 5 more movies.
Really? Do you know of anything outside of this the established Avengers characters that's going to be done?
In Avengers, they've kept it very much a secret.
Okay.
Obviously, like, we'll find out more about Hawkeye. Will be like the main new thing in Avengers. But like in terms of, we know Loki from Thor is a bad guy in Avengers.
Right. But what I meant was, are any non-Avenger Marvel characters going to be getting their own film?
Marvel has said that they have plans. They've not like formally announced everything, but like the to-do list has consistently been Doctor Strange, possibly rebooting Daredevil, but that might be over at Fox, and a few other things. I know
that would have been considered in your Fox failure.
Yeah, that would have been in the Fox failure run. I know that there was a Marvel comic series called Alias, which was about a woman who was a superhero and lost her abilities and became a private detective, who still interacts with other heroes, but on a nasty Philip Marlowe ground kind of level. That's going to be a TV show that's going to cross over with the Avengers. That's going to have characters and things like coming in and out and mentioning one another. And Luke Cage, who's a character that they're hoping will be an Avenger, will turn up in that one. And the Hulk is going to spin off from Avengers into a new Hulk TV show.
Interesting.
So that's been announced.
Well, that's good news. I think we got to get moving on.
Yeah.
Let's Captain Avenger.
Yeah.
Captain Avenger.
Captain America.
Captain America.
Captain. Isn't it Dom DeLuise' character from Cannonball Run? The wrestler is Captain Avenger.
Captain Avenger?
I think so. So your number one, Steve.
Yes, I think we're going to differ here. Yep. Not so much on the movie, but at least on our number ones.
Okay.
I went with The Artist because it was the most thoroughly entertaining experience I'd had. I mean, I was charmed by The Artist. Yes, right. I was thoroughly entertained by Captain America, but The Artist did something to me that, like, every now and then I will see a movie, or sometimes rarely, in the sense that it reinvigorates my belief in the art of filmmaking. And The Artist did that for all of its simplicity. We're talking about a silent film that is basically baked. They're smoking on that. They are smoking in the movie. Yeah. But it's basically based on the ability of the actors to convey the character through their gesticulations, through their movements, the little things they do. Yeah. And it is simply the most charming film that I've seen in a long time. And I walked out of it shaking my head and pissed off at it, actually, because, it's a silent film. It's about as anti-Avatar as you can get. Yeah. And maybe that's what's going to give it a run here. But, I don't want to overdo it. But really, I have to, because I love cinema and filmmaking and not just, great CGI stuff like we've talked about, but, the simple things, the basics of how a scene edits together, how objects on the screen move in motion with each other and can convey feeling without words. And this is something about visually feeling something without words. Yes, there's music and there are words at moments in the film, which give it sort of a fantasy element. Yeah. It kind of delves into that for a moment there. It kind of makes you wonder about, like, this universe that they're living in. But, it explains itself. It's about a silent film star who is greatly lauded for his successful films and his charm, his friendliness, his facade that has given him this wonderful life, at the top of the film industry in I guess the late 20s L.A. Yeah, late
1927 is when it opens. It seems to go up to the early 30s.
And his amusing relationship with his dog. Yeah. And how he treats other people, which is interesting in the sense that one can always learn from the mouse pulling the prick out of the toe of the lion, is that it's the very little things you can do can actually very much niceties you can do that can really help you in the future. And the way they do that in this film, there's just this unforgettable scene where he paints the dot on her face, which becomes her look. And by her, I mean Bernice Bejo, who again is the wife of the director.
Wife of the director, Michael Hazanavicius.
Yes. And it's just his implosion, the decline of his career and the rise of hers is done in such an entertaining way. I mean, it's not like we don't know where this movie's going to go. It's predictable, but it is entertaining throughout. And it reminded me in a way of like a black and white silent version of, I don't know if you've seen the Coen Brothers, The Hudsucker Proxy, which is sort of like a Preston Sturges animated in terms of like the way the people are acting, presenting themselves. Just, they're having fun with life, the highs and the lows of it. And it's also a very obvious nod to the love of filmmaking. I just couldn't love it anymore. You know what I mean? I'm embarrassed to say it's both a guilty pleasure and not. So that's my number one. If you haven't seen it, you probably will. You probably heard enough about it. But I would urge people who haven't seen the film yet to just try and I'm going to stop talking about it because I don't want to build it up. I've talked about it enough. Avoid the trailers. Avoid as much as you can about this movie and just go see it. You know, I don't want you to blow it up in your head like it's this incredibly awesome thing. It's just charming, and you will love it. I am done.
I was not deeply enamored of the artist. I liked it. I did not love it. I wanted to. I can tell, like, it's like, oh, I'm a film critic. It's a silent movie. I should get this. And I got it. I just wasn't. It has a little bit of the effect of it. I kind of got to the end and I said, okay, that was nice. Next up, I guess. I appreciate the central love story. It's obviously it's sort of a Romana Klepp version of John Gilbert and Greta Garbo is who these people are supposed to be similar to in terms of the base relationship, but it's also a version of A Star Is Born and sort of mashed up with Singing in the Rain with the end of the silence and the, rise of the talkie movies. I liked it. I didn't really fall in love with it. I know, yourself and a lot of people really love this particular movie. I almost feel,
it's an emotional connection.
I feel a little left out because I kind of, like I was like, okay, this is pretty good.
It's the kind of movie you want to put it in your back pocket and just go.
I was never really I think part of the problem is that the movie keeps insisting to me that the main character, the guy, is like really charming and likable, and I'm supposed to root for him to keep going. And I was mainly sort of glad when he showed up because the dog was with him. Because I was just kind of like, okay, this guy's all right. Like Bernice Bayo really nails the part. She really seems more so than Jean Dujardin, who's the main character, George Valentin. She really nails. Like what silent actresses and actresses who transitioned out.
There's a lot of moments like that in this film where you're watching it and you're thinking like, wow, they really nailed that. Really
she
nailed
knows
that.
what
Worked.
This looks like.
It works.
She has the big eyes and the elaborate hand gestures and that sort of thing. And she's very good at it. I wish she had more of a character because she's sort of the love interest and that's her whole character. Everything, the entire driving force of her existence is basically that she's rooting for this guy to succeed. And to come back, everything we know about her is in relation to the male character. It certainly fails the Bechdel test. If people,
in a way, like it's like the Muppets. Oh, I'm sorry, I think I talked over you.
No, go ahead.
Well, it's just so charming.
Yeah, no,
it makes you feel happy, and it's not revolutionary. Yeah. They're not doing anything new here. It's just a feel-good film that is pleasant in this widescreen world of cinema that we're in, and have been for quite some time.
I appreciated it. It didn't really grab me, but I appreciated it. I'm gonna be real tired of it by the time it becomes.
They're going to shove it down your throat.
Oh yeah, this is going to be like an Oscar front runner.
So please, people, just try not to. You've heard enough about the movie.
Yeah,
just try not to pay attention. They're trying to reach people who haven't heard about the movie.
When it comes near you, find out for yourself.
Bob, drum roll.
Okay, my number one, I went with, and by the way, my list is not really in any particular order other than this one, but I went with the Tree of Life, the Terrence Malick movie, which is sort of a little hard to explain. Very hard to explain, actually. I'm not sure I could explain it to myself, but it's
I'll try and help.
It's like a it's like a flashback structured dream logic sort of movie where Sean Penn, who's not really in much of the movie and is not happy about that, as it turns out, is a man who is reflecting back on his own childhood, and we basically see this not in terms of the normal way of a movie, where, it's like, where you'll have someone remember their childhood and it's like, I remember, it's not like Stand By Me where a guy is narrating it and it's in very orderly story linear fashion. This is, goes from his birth to right up through his, I guess he should be about 13 by the time this is, by the time they're like pulling away from that street. He seems like a 13-year-old, right? Yeah. It's definitely, he's on the cusp of puberty is what the thing is driving at that point. But we get it in very small snips of things, some of which seem to be real memories, others seem to be dream-like memories where things are happening that are not necessarily real, like he's remembering his mother, and in some, who's like it's one of these movies where a character's mother was this ethereal, angelic figure who is like the good in his life, and his father was sort of failing as a businessman and was kind of a hard, anachronistically masculine figure who wanted him to be tough and real, and the father is like a young old person and the mother is like an adult child.
I would also add that the movie is told from a very low angle, so you're getting it from his point of view, and it just sort of, you get the overwhelming sense of his world and how his father Brad Pitt plays into it, and his mother, and it's not, it's a little scary.
Yeah, it's
a little scary. It's also it's meditative.
Yeah, and
it's not an abrupt film.
Yeah, no,
but it's sort of it's a little scary.
It just kind of happens, and it goes from one event in his life for another. We can never really be sure how, like, it's the unreliable narrator thing, where how much of, like, was his father really this much of an asshole, or is he remembering this through that, like, through the room, where as a kid his mother was the fun one and his father was the stern one, so obviously he prefers her and her vision of things. But then as the memories kind of clarify as he gets older and the eye level evens out with his father, the movie feels a little more real in those parts, and they kind of come to an understanding with one another. Not a great one, but they sort of get it. And, we see Brad Pitt do heroic things. He jumps into the water and tries to save this kid from drowning, which is like the first bad memory the kid has, is an encounter with death. And it also intercuts his memories of his development with the development of the universe. So we're also seeing, like, the birth of the planet and the cosmos and dinosaurs and evolution. And it's all mixed up into this shifting timelines, like, music video for classical music.
Well, I think ethereal was a good way to put it, because when you go back and you're looking at the birth of the universe, but you're set up to believe that this movie is told from his perspective, it's really kind of warped.
Yeah,
but it's also, I think, an exercise in making a movie that is so anti the way we perceive movies.
Yeah, it's anti-linear. It's anti. This is all dream logic. Especially since we seem to, like, the ending, if you take it literally, seems to depict the end of the world. I'm not sure if that's exactly what happens, but that seems to, there's this ending where we're seeing, like, the planet getting consumed by a solar flare, and then Sean Penn and characters who should be dead are walking on a beach toward a door, and it's a movie that kind of, it really does feel like I'm watching someone's dream.
Yeah, you really have to stick with it. And I'm wondering what it is about this movie that resonated with you, because I really wanted to like it, and I know that it's a special film, but it's you got to stick with it. If you're not really wanting to find out something about these people, it ends up being dreary or boring. But then on the other hand, from another perspective, it's this is gold. So what is it about what connected with you?
I don't know.
That didn't connect with me.
It just felt sort of like, when it's, especially in the flashbacks to the kids' boyhood, when we're seeing, like, the kids jumping in the water and swimming and having fun, and also the boys getting into mischief. There's a long stretch of the movie where the father goes away, and the movie is a little coy because the kids obviously wouldn't have perfect memories of it. We're not sure, did they separate he seems to have gone on a business trip is what he says, but he's gone for so long, it seems like, that, okay, did they separate? Did they have some kind of difficulties? Like, what actually happened here? We don't know. But during this period where the father goes away, the movie thus far has all been about the boy saying, oh, mom was more fun. She let us get away with stuff, and she played with us and was great. And dad was mean because he had rules, and he, lashed out on occasion and whatnot. But then once the father figures out of the picture, we see these young boys, running around their neighborhood, breaking windows in a house that's burned down, and that one of them just kind of murders a frog in a very kind of casual way for a reason that even he doesn't understand. It's just terrible things that children do, and that feels so much more real as, like, memories of, because we see movies right now are in this place in our popular culture where people are fixated on the idealism of childhood, most egregiously Super 8. Which is J.J. Abrams basically not telling me how awesome it was to be a young kid growing up, but how awesome it was to be a young kid watching Steven Spielberg movies about young kids growing up. And I'm like, dude, I saw those same movies. This is so artificial and
well, you can relate in the idea that what these kids are doing, we may perceive it as scary because of the way we've been conditioned to respond to film, as we see them in theaters. But in reality, kids do kill frogs, but I mean, it seems really stupid for me to say that, but when you watch it in a film atmosphere,
or there's
it says something else.
Or
the message of what you're seeing visually. Here we may be seeing like somebody dissecting a frog, but when you see it on screen, what people do on screen. We bring baggage with us to the theater. And we interpret these things different ways.
Or like in most movies that are about like young men coming of age, the whole, like the emerging idea of interest in women and in sex and whatnot is usually carried off in this really hammy way, where it's like, boys peeking through a keyhole or something. And in this one, it's this bizarre scene where he like sneaks into a neighbor's house and, plays with like a nightie that he found of a woman. It's like, oh, a woman's underclothing. What is this? Which he then like steals, like he's ashamed of it and tries to bury it and then lets it float down a river. And it's like, what the hell does this mean? What happened? And it's like, it doesn't mean anything. This is weird stuff that happens when you're a kid.
So am I to say that your admiration is in its fearlessness?
I think there's that. It's something about it really kind of just, I don't want to like be cliche, but spoke to me. And on a technical level, I appreciate any movie that is able to really give you a sense of time. Like you can watch this movie not knowing what the early 60s were and know, okay, we're in the early 60s, but it doesn't have to do the usual thing of putting a bunch of old TV shows on a TV in the background or filling up the screen with old toys or beer cans or something so that we know.
Common cinema reference points.
It's always, because usually when it's like a movie, it's like that 70s show, where it's like, hey, it's the 70s. Do you know it's the 70s? It's the 70s. Disco, Star Wars, Smokey and the Bandit, 70s. Whereas this one, there's no pop culture reference to it. It's just like, this feels like that era. And it feels appropriate. And also, I'm a sucker for any movie that can cut back and forth between, Sean Penn in a business meeting, Brad Pitt playing a pipe organ in a church, and a dinosaur.
Right.
There are dinosaurs in this movie.
That was most resonant for me.
And goes back, and it's like you could say it's like, Sean Penn in a business meeting, Brad Pitt's playing a pipe organ, kids are playing in the water, and somewhere billions of years in the past, a dinosaur chooses not to eat another dinosaur, and somehow this all fits together. This is all part of something. And it's like, is it pretentious? Yeah, probably, but it worked for me. It worked for me as kind of.
I think that's a good way to put it. You know what? You acknowledge its pretentiousness.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have existed were it not. Were it trying to avoid being pretentious. I know that sounds strange, but
pretense is not a sin if it works. I don't know that you can do, once you write the words "birth of the universe" into your movie, it's pretentious. There's no way around it.
He did that.
It's that is what this is. So, but it's there and it works. I like it, and I run hot and cold on Terrence Malick, but I really liked this one.
Yeah, I've got it sitting on the shelf. I haven't watched it again since seeing it in the theater, and
well, now, did you see it twice? Because I saw it, because I know most of the Boston area.
No, there was a famous, now infamous screening scenario here in Boston where
where the print failed.
Yes,
and we didn't really get to see all of the ends.
And not only that, the slide projector for ads started
was
going
running
on,
like the movie trivia stuff over the end of the movie.
Yeah, no, I didn't see the first screening. They set up another one a couple.
Yeah, they
did
later. Another screening for it. So I did see. And seeing it twice definitely helped, because I really liked it the first time, and then seeing it the second time, I was like, yeah, okay, this is the thing.
It's better without the ads.
Yeah, without the ads, and once I was able to go in knowing that I'm just like, okay, don't try to follow it, just sit back and let it come to you. It worked a lot better for me.
Bob, we got to. We actually have to end this conversation.
Cool.
I know we've been going for a couple hours.
No, it's fine.
But I'm led to wonder if you have any honorable mentions this year.
I think we kind of covered them. I'd need to go through a list. I'm very bad at list keeping in my head.
I wrote mine down.
I wrote down the top 10. I didn't write down runners up. But if you've got any, be my guest.
Some of them weren't really. I was thinking of putting in my top 10, but there were other films that I'm thinking like people should give a second chance because I kind of digged them. There was a film that came out a year ago, the Jason Statham flick, The Mechanic.
Oh, yeah.
Which was strangely interesting. I thought that was pretty good. I enjoyed Ed Helms' really quickly here, Cedar Rapids.
Yes. Cedar Rapids was terrific.
Bill Hicks.
The documentary
Yeah,
about Bill Hicks?
the American, the Bill Hicks story.
I didn't
trying
see
to remember
it.
that.
Everyone tells me it's awesome.
Fright Night. I would have loved for Colin Farrell to get a Best Supporting Actor nomination for the best performance as a fucking vampire. That was great.
The Fright Night remake has problems, but it's actually pretty well put together.
Yeah,
I really liked it.
I kind of enjoyed Hobo with a Shotgun. Also, the Korean flick I Saw the Devil.
Okay.
Exceptionally violent film, but wow,
Put that
just
on the list.
mesmerizing. And the Norwegian film Troll Hunter.
Oh man, I completely forgot to mention Troll Hunter. Don't know if it would have been top 10, but it was awesome.
Yeah, I think we're going to end things. I think we're going to end things there.
Yeah, Troll Hunter. Go see it.
That's the one, man.
Yeah.
Of the many, I guess, that we like this year. So, hey, I want to thank everybody for listening, and thanks, Bob, for sitting in on this very long conversation.
No problem. Anytime.
And hey, tell people where they can find you online.
All right. You can find me at escapistmagazine.com. On Tuesdays, I do a show called The Big Picture. On Fridays, I do movie reviews as Escape to the Movies. You can check out my blog at moviebob.blogspot.com, a secondary blog at gameoverthinker.blogspot.com. That's related to a show called The Game Overthinker, which airs on screwattack.com whenever the episodes go up. You can check out a lot of my material on YouTube, and I'm pretty sure that covers it.
Well, you're Twittering a lot now.
Yes, I am. I am tweeting a lot.
So is it twitter.com/Bob Chipman or MovieBob?
It's MovieBob is the Twitter.
And I've actually kicked in with Twitter.
Yay!
I've got I just didn't get it before. I didn't get it, but like these past week or two I've been Twittering and surprised that I've got a couple hundred followers.
It's good for business.
I guess so. I'm learning about Twitter. I'm getting into it. I'm at twitter.com/SteveHead. And so you can listen to all of our episodes online at post-movie.net. And we're on Facebook. If you can like us on Facebook, that would be awesome. And we're also on iTunes. So if you can type in the search thing there, Post Movie Podcast, and subscribe and leave a review, that would be awesome. And if you ever have any questions, if you want to send me an email, send John Black an email. If you ever want to get in touch with Bob Chipman through us, send us an email at contact@post-movie.net. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, thanks again, Bob.
Thank you, Steve.
So long, everybody.